crews say they were hit by a flying object. We don't think it could have been a bomb attached to the boat.
As I mentioned earlier, the U.S. Military Central Command has released a video showing what it claims is an Iranian military patrol boat removing an unexploded mine from one of the tankers. The Iranian leader Hassan Rouhani has accused the U.S. of destabilizing peace and security in the Middle East, while Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Washington's assessment that Iran is culpable was based on intelligence, adding that no one else in the region had the capacity to carry out such an attack.
The Islamic Republic of Iran is responsible for the attacks that occurred in the Gulf of Oman. No proxy group operating in the area has the resources and proficiency to act with such a high degree of sophistication.
Over the last 2 years, the US has been implementing an aggressive approach, violating international law and using its financial and military clout. This poses a serious threat to the region and to global security.
The Iranian foreign ministers branded the claim his country was behind the attacks as sabotage diplomacy. The U.S. has since sent missile destroyers to the region. Tehran denies any involvement and has questioned the timing of the incidents. The Russian Foreign Ministry also commented on the situation, saying the Iranophobic position of the U.S. is creating an artificial escalation of tensions in the region. Caleb Maupin has more.
So there were 2 oil tankers that were hit.
Most probably torpedo attack. Vessel fully loaded, tanker, risk of explosion. For all vessels in vicinity, keep clear CPA from motor tanker frontal tire. Rescue operation almost completed. No medical assistance required, no any injured person. All crew safely disembarked.
Мы попали под атаку, скорее всего, торпедную. Сейчас мы на берегу Ирана. Нас спасли.
Let's go over the facts. Now, the first one belongs to John Fredrickson. He's a longtime Norwegian trading partner of Iran. His relationship with Iran goes back to the 1980s. One biography even refers to him as the Ayatollah's lifeline. So, at a time when Washington is using all kinds of pressure to try and stop Iranian oil exports, it really doesn't make sense for Iran to then lash out and attack one of its oldest friends. Now, the second oil tanker to be hit is even more interesting. This is a Japanese-owned chemical tanker, and it was hit at the same time that Japan's Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe, was in Tehran meeting with Iran's supreme leader.
Iran, from the ancient times of the Persian Empire until the present day, has been the great country of the Middle East and will remain so in the future.
So we're to believe that at the time that Iran was making nice with Japan, while Japan was helping them to find ways to help their oil exports keep flowing despite U.S. sanctions, that Iran then turns around and decides to bomb a Japanese vessel. In fact, Iran has been rather nice to the United States in the last few days. A U.S. resident who was charged with espionage was just released as a gesture of goodwill. So why would they then choose this moment to fire torpedoes in the Gulf of Oman? The Iranian Foreign Minister, Javad Zarif, is describing these events as suspicious.
Reported attacks on Japan-related tankers occurred while PM was meeting with Ayatollah for extensive and friendly talks. Suspicious doesn't begin to describe what likely transpired this morning.
While Iran is struggling to keep its nuclear deal intact and keep its economy afloat by selling its most prized resources on the international market, Mike Pompeo would have us believe they then flipped out and torpedoed their 2 key business partners. Now, why exactly would Iran do that? Well, because they're the bad guys, of course. Don't ask too many questions. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
Iran says it sent a group of experts to check whether or not it's safe for the rescue crew to return to the tanker. The 2 vessels caught fire in one of the world's key oil routes near the Strait of Hormuz. It's the only way in and out of the Gulf. The incident prompted oil prices to surge. Tehran has threatened to shut the waterway in response to the U.S. ending waivers on Iranian oil imports. Last month, 4 oil vessels were sabotaged near the same strategic strait. Back then, the U.S. also pointed the finger at Tehran and sent an aircraft carrier group plus bombers to the region. In May, Iran said it would renege some of its commitments under the nuclear deal, unilaterally abandoned by the United States after Washington imposed sanctions. This escalation sparked fears of a confrontation, but both nations say they do not want war. President of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, Afram Inbar, says it's too soon to jump to any conclusions.
I'm not sure that any investigation will really be able to come out with a clear result. Basically, there are suspicions against the Iranians, which of course create additional tensions between the United States and Iran, and we'll see what follows. We don't have the facts. If the Americans will produce some evidence, of course it's likely that the Iranians have sabotaged the ships because they are under American pressure. It seems that they change their strategies. They don't want to outweigh President Trump until the new elections, and they can do trouble in order to affect the flow of an important strategic commodity like oil.
YouTube, Twitter, and Pinterest